Well, hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma and I'm so excited about today's episode. If you've been listening, you know that we've been talking a lot about attitude and the attitude adjustment that a human needs to create happiness and success and positivity. And today's episode is all about your attitude towards yourself. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Well, hello there, Nick.
Hello, Kisma.
What's going on?
Attitude adjustment.
Yeah, how's your attitude today?
My attitude's been really well.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel
you
like
have had a very positive attitude.
Yeah, it's been good. Staying out of the weeds.
Staying out of the weeds. What happens? Like, what does that mean?
For me, it's making sure that I don't get too down into like this thing and that thing and all the little stuff,
Yeah.
So I'm learning how to delegate better. So that's a really big step for me.
Yeah.
That's not something I've traditionally been really.
And you have people to
skilled at.
delegate to?
I do.
This
yeah.
is good.
And when I don't have people, I go find people. And
just thankfully you're not delegating to me very much. I appreciate that.
well, yeah, I mean, but I am though in certain ways. But
you must have done it very ninja-like because I missed it.
Exactly. That is exactly right. Stealthily, yeah.
Stealthily.
No, that's what's been going on with me. I mean, it's super exciting times. We're kicking off 2018, like we're kind of in full swing, and it just really feeling wonderful. Yeah. You just got back from New York, yeah?
I did, and it was really funny. The day I flew out was one of those really freezing, super cold days. And I taught 2 classes at the Edgar Cayce Center, and then I was at a business group that I'm in that I really loved being in. But it was funny because as I was going, people were like, but it's so cold. And I'm like, yeah, but I have stuff to do, So I prepared myself by imagining that it was the North Pole. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get off the plane and there's going to be a blizzard. I'm going to get my Uber. There's going to be I just prepared for the worst. And then it really wasn't so bad at all. The snow had stopped. The wind had died down. It was bitter cold for 2.5, 3 days, really around zero.
Yeah.
But, for you people in Minnesota, that's it's warm. And then the weird thing is by day 4, it got up to 40.
Wow.
It was such a bizarre shift. So, but yeah, I love New York.
What do you love so much about it?
I think it's the people and the hustle and the bustle. And I'm just if anyone wants to, I'm just going to give myself a little plug on Instagram. If you look for me on Instagram, Kisma Awake, I love taking photos of New York. Now, it was a little bit too cold to get a lot when I was there this time, but it's like the architecture. You just kind of feel the energy of the buildings, and Zoe's up by Riverside Park, which is just my favorite. And the people, they're just really direct, really, if you say hello to them, they say hello to you. I know that sounds like most people, but there's just some, it's a very active city.
Yeah.
People are moving and shaking.
Well, I can't wait to experience it.
Yeah.
It's so silly to me that I've never been to New York.
Well, because I'm doing my little energy mastery certification in New York, March 24th, 25th. If any of y'all want to come, get in touch with me real fast.
Hit her up on Instagram.
Hit me up on Instagram.
She's got a very good Instagram. Mine gets a little neglected from time to time.
Or Kisma at sourcemovement.com, because we're almost full. It's going to be a great training. Siobhan's going to be there, who was on our podcast several weeks ago. And man, it's such, we've talked about energy mastery so much. So you East Coasters,
now's your time.
Now's your time.
Well, that's really exciting. And I love this topic. We're talking about your attitude, the attitude adjustment, how to adjust your attitude towards yourself in a really positive and productive way.
So important.
Now, the reason I think this one is so important is because you got to hang out with you 24/7.
Oh, really? I think I just got that. I must have missed the memo.
No, but it's really easy to forget that,
Yeah.
Everything.
You mean that noise going on in your head is like you're the only one hearing it?
Yes. I mean, it gets projected out in some ways, but at the end of the day, like you're living with whatever's going on up there. And it's so easy to externalize everything and to make it all about everybody else and everything that's going on with them and how that's affecting you and what's and all that stuff. But like really your attitude towards yourself, when you think about yourself as another person, okay, so it's like kind of like split your personality and there's like, say like your higher self, you got like your best self, and then you've got like your normal, like everyday human being kind of self.
Right.
Okay, well, these two people are hanging out all day long, 24/7, all the time. And what kind of relationship do you want them to have? Right. Like, so if you're at battle with yourself or you're like not having a good relationship with yourself, like that is going to affect everything in your life. And that's, I think that's a really good kind of metaphor is like to split yourself in two and really look at those higher aspects of yourself and then like your everyday self. Those two need to be getting along.
Yeah, ideally.
And then when you even just get into all the other little parts of you, like your embodied human, all those other little parts need to be getting along. Like you've got your emotional self, you've got your thoughts, and there can be infighting in those. You've got your conscious mind and all the things that you know better about, and know, just actively. And then you've got that vast subconscious and all the funny little things that lurk in there. And everybody needs to be having a good conversation. So attitude adjustment is really about how to have a great conversation with yourself.
I think that's great. That's great. So, we were talking a bit before, and you had a really good point about probably many of our listeners have done spiritual growth, personal growth. You're reading books, you're listening to podcasts, and you are doing your absolute best to be the best version of you. And what happens, Nick, when the best version goes sideways?
Well, one of the ways that I see it go sideways a lot, and this goes for all the people that you just mentioned, when you've done that kind of work for yourself, one of the first things that you've probably learned is it's all you. Like you're it. You're the one. What is showing up in your world is a, creation of your own, and especially how you're relating to that and continuing to create is something that we talk about on this podcast a lot.
Right.
And when you then have that conscious awareness of it,
right, yet
you see yourself in thought or emotion or behavior that is not productive and doesn't align with that can, number one, be really confusing.
Right.
But also it's super easy to slip into blame and shame and judgment about yourself. And so all that stuff that you might have been throwing at other people in the past, okay, so you start to judge other people less, you see them, okay, like you listened to the last episode, which was really about relating to other people. And you're like, okay, cool, I got that piece and totally respect for who they are. But then in the back of your mind, you still see yourself doing some of those things and then all that starts to turn inward towards yourself. And that's a really key moment, because if that is not addressed, you can destroy yourself and eat yourself from the inside out really, really quickly, actually.
So true.
And create a lot of problems for yourself. And it gets even more compressed because it's all internalized.
Well, it's a bit of shame, right? Whenever we say should've, we are shaming ourselves. And shame, if any of you are familiar with David Hawkins, I think his book, is it Power versus Force?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about shame and guilt being the lowest vibratory emotion. So if there's anything that's going to bring a person down super fast, it's shame.
Yeah.
And so I love that because, mistakes happen. And when we can look at a mistake or a poor choice or something we've done and be like, okay, what's the lesson in that? Man, you get these golden gems coming back into your soul. There's so much information in the instances that don't go as we wanted them to. So rather holding this attitude of shoulda, woulda, not good enough is like hold the attitude of, okay, where's the lesson?
Yeah.
Where's the pivot? Like, where's the golden gem? Because you have many more opportunities right in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. All the time. And the pathway to where you really want to get is not going to be the straight line
Right.
that you think.
Not
that you
always.
want it to be.
Sometimes, man, we get blessed with that straight line.
Oh,
it is so cool,
so
right?
cool,
Like,
man.
boom.
But that's not the norm, I would say. You know, it's oftentimes there's these little twists and turns and
can
unexpected
be.
things that really, I think in my view of it, it's like, oh, well, that's the magic of the path, just kind of unwinding. And then there's like so many cool, when I'm paying attention,
Right.
there's so many cool things along the way that I would have never expected, or so many cool things that unfold that I would have never even thought of.
Right.
And when I'm stuck in my way of needing to be and needing to get there, miss all that stuff.
Right.
And it makes it 10 times as harder. And then you also think 10 times as harder. I don't think that's the way you say that. but it also, aside from that, is also, it really compresses you.
It compresses. I mean, you know, we've been through this conversation of energy so much. The field shrinks, it gets congested. And I don't like using the word hard, but things will feel harder.
Well, that's that's the right way to say it. Is like your experience of it will be.
Yeah.
you will experience that as harder.
Right. So for me, I mean, for the listeners that can feel this way, is be like, pivot the attitude to, okay, what's my lesson and what's next?
Yeah.
It's when we hang out in the past where we carry the regret.
Yeah.
We sit in the shame. When we hang out in the future, we're worried, how's it going to work out? What's going to happen? There's a ton of anxiety in the future. When we hang out right here, right now, our eyes are open. Our souls are like front and center, wanting the very best for us. So the lesson can be absorbed in a way that we can really elevate from that.
Yeah. And get it, like really get it
Yeah.
on a cellular level. I was walking down the stairs and going to the car the other day. I was heading up to the center for the day. So I had a bunch of different things and, of course, wanted to do it all in one trip. And I'm going down and I'm fussing with the door and trying to get everything in. And sure enough, I drop one of my bottles and shatter a glass bottle. And of all days, it's pouring rain in Southern
Of
California.
all days in San Diego.
San Diego, it's pouring rain, which doesn't happen too often, everybody. So now I'm getting pouring rain on me, and there's a busted bottle all over, and it's like, okay. And for me, it was a beautiful moment for me because I did get the message right away. I was like, dude, you're carrying way too much. Like you need to really think about how you're managing this. And that was something that, you know, I kind of talked about at the beginning of the episode. That was, I think, part of that pivot for me of realizing, dude, you need to delegate a little bit more. Like if you keep trying to do all this yourself, you're going to get really, really exhausted.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important, you know, to get it and then to move on.
Right.
And I was just like, it just hit me in a flash. I was like, got it.
Yeah.
And I went and implemented it in my life. So that's really important too. Sometimes the awareness is enough because that's just your little attitude adjustment. That's the adjustment right there. It's like, ooh, got it. Okay, I'm going to
Right.
But then when you implement that and ground it into action,
Right.
that even makes it that much more powerful.
Totally. I love that. That's so important. Yeah. Your actions will be basically mirroring your attitude. You know, the other point that I really wanted to bring up is just having worked with so many individuals, it's so important to check in how you're seeing your life. I know for me, when I look at the past, or even now, if I get in a rut, I am focused on what isn't working. And man, does that suck. Right now, and we'll share something in a moment of when someone has a gift to do that. But I'm talking about the emotionally centered, selfish, this isn't working. I don't have this. I don't have this. This isn't working. So-and-so's not like, and I guarantee when a human gets into this state, as soon as they wake up, they're thinking about what isn't working or what they don't have or what just is miserable. And when they go to bed, and this is no way to live.
Yeah.
It just isn't. Now, here's the beautiful thing. If you choose, and I truly hope that if you're experiencing this, or if you know someone that is, like, pass this podcast along, because the moment you choose to pivot that awareness is the moment of change. And it is when we focus on what is working, when we focus on what we are grateful for, what we're proud of, what we've done right, the whole field of your being expands. Your entire field, your energy field becomes brighter. And so understand this, everyone, as you are in frequency, you are attracting in frequency. So if you're focused on what isn't working, what you don't have, guess what you're attracting more of? Stuff that doesn't work and stuff you don't have. When you're focused on what you've done really well, what you want to celebrate, what you do have, who's in your life, you attract more of that. This is an infallible law of the universe, and it works. So that simple choice, that pivot, is when everything starts to be different.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It kind of reminds me of a story. I was talking with this lovely lady, and she's really frustrated.
Were you going to run off with her? How lovely was she?
She's no. Okay. There's none as lovely as you. You are the first.
Okay, move on.
Move on.
There's just a little pattern interrupt. Make sure everyone's listening out there.
No, she's a lovely human being, and but she's really frustrated with herself. You know, like she's working in her business, and she wasn't making the sales that she wanted, and everything was hard. It was just everything was really, really hard. And so we started to talk about that, and one of the things that I found that she was doing was, and I think this is really common, is she's so in the moment with everything and it's all right in front of her. And she's really focused on, just like you said, really, really focused on these problems. And one of the things that really helped her was like, okay, well, let's take a second back, because you're saying that you still have all these same problems that you had before, but wait a second.
Yeah.
Let's look back at where we started.
Oh, yes.
Let's flash back just 3 months ago.
Yeah.
You're a radically different human being.
Yeah.
And she got it like right away.
So
like
cool.
It just went off in her. She's like, oh my gosh, like you're so right. Like when I look back at where I was three months ago, even just 3 months ago, it's like, this is a totally different game. And what that did was really help her to make that pivot into, okay, there is forward motion.
Yes.
Okay. Is everything perfect? Not yet. Right. But I'm on the track and I'm moving and I'm pointed in the right direction. And those things are really, really key. As long as you're on the track and pointed in the right direction, you're good. If you're just making an inch of progress, that's huge.
Yeah.
Right. And that little piece lets you start to see what is working.
Yeah. I think that's a great reminder for those of you that are in coaching. Nick and I both do a ton of coaching and energy work on people. And when I have some high-level clients and they're working on a lot, they can get frustrated that seemingly the results aren't as fast, or things come back or feelings come back. But you're right. The moment they're like, oh, when I look at where I was, it's such a great perspective. And to understand this journey is ongoing.
Right.
This is one thing, like we're always getting coaching. It's the layers being peeled off.
Yeah.
And it's the exciting thing. Like there's yet another gem, to uncover.
Yeah, another layer,
something more miraculous to experience, another way to manifest and to create. So, yeah, just it's a bit of the acceptance.
It
right?
is, yeah, it really is. It reminds me of another a gentleman that I work with, and again, frustrated with himself because he's like, oh, I'm doing that same thing again. I'm going down this same path of getting frustrated with this person in my life and et cetera. And it's like, and it really took him down. And I said, well, wait a second, 3 months ago or 6 months ago for him, 6 months ago, this would have spun you out for a week. Now you spent 2 hours, dwelling on it. And then when we got past it.
Yeah.
Like you think about that, like all that time recovered. So for all of you on that path, when you see yourself in those behaviors, don't look at what's the same about it, because then you're going to be the same thing, and you're going to be looking and basically being the person that you were 6 months ago or a year ago, or when you were a kid, right? When those childhood things come up. Instead of looking at, wow, like this is forward progress, instead of spinning out for a week on this one bad thing, I solved that in a couple hours.
Right. That's great.
That is titanic. Like that is so huge. And that little bit of appreciation for yourself, like think about yourself as if you were another person, right? So if somebody else, makes a mistake again, are you just going to read them the riot act and beat them into submission? Or are you going to be like, okay, well, let's look at this a little more objectively. All right. Not ideal and progress.
Yeah. Progress. So this brings me to, there was a third piece we really wanted to talk about, and that is your consistent attitude of yourself will create this identification, right? So it's a bit of 1 and 2 combined, but it will create this deep presence and belief and identification about yourself. So for you, Nick, can you share a little bit about, say, pre personal growth, coaching journey, how did you identify with yourself?
Seems like lifetimes ago.
Yeah, right. I know.
It really seems so long ago because I have been into this for a really long time. Part of my journey though was like I'd have these little flashes of like a kind of like a lighting up. Like I woke up for a minute and then I would kind of fall back asleep. And I've been deeply interested in personal development for probably 20 years. So to go way back before that, I think I don't even really remember what that's like. But when I look back at the beginning of the journey, my relationship to myself was a lot of shame and guilt and it was a lot of unts, like a lot of, like shoulds and couldn'ts and wouldn'ts and all those sorts of things. And just like heaping all that on myself. So where I would know, of some things that I needed to do that were healthy for me, like maybe you shouldn't stay up, half the night, doing whatever, all kinds of not productive things, yet I'd be doing it anyway.
So does that mean you were identifying with not being productive?
I was identifying, I got a little off there. I forgot, I didn't get, thank you for guiding me back to that. I identified more as a slacker.
Oh, heavy word.
Yeah. I would say that's how I identified as myself, or an underachiever.
Okay.
So no matter what I would do,
it wasn't good enough?
Not going to be good enough, and I'm never really going to make it there.
Okay.
So it would lead to a lot of sabotaging behavior.
Right, because that's the whole point of this, right?
Yeah.
Is how we're identifying consistently and constantly is how we will express and how we will take action. It will create our behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you find because you identify with being a slacker, you took slack behavior? Slack action.
Well, yeah, because I'm a slacker, so I'm going to go be a slacker. Right?
It's phenomenal.
You're going to be whatever you tell yourself.
You're going to be whatever you believe and are telling yourself you're going to be. Okay, so flash forward. Here you are, like you're consistent in your work. You're always doing energy work. You're on top of it. What do you think you identify with as yourself?
Again, another interesting question. I hadn't really thought about it in this context. For me, I would say I identify myself as it's really about me relating to my higher mission and identifying as that spiritual being here to do work, here to do things. We can maybe get into that in the next episode, but I identify much more highly with the mission that I'm on than I do all of my lower stuff. It's like my personality, my incarnate personality is something that I can use and develop while I'm here. And that's kind of my work. But ultimately, it's not really like that's part of the journey, but I'm just really about here to do what I'm here to do, do my job. And the more that I identify with that, the more it gets me out of all of that lower stuff.
Right. And I was thinking the word freedom, it's like when, for our listeners out there, when you identify with a level of you that is being fueled by a mission, being fueled by a purpose, something higher and greater than you, it's like you just got wings, and you can run. I did a Facebook Live the other day. One of my clients texted me. She goes, I love your magic carpet, because I talked about the magic carpet. Like, get on the freaking magic carpet and rise up and over, rather than getting, into the thick of the drama and the trauma. It does not resolve down there. It resolves in the higher aspects of the mind. So when we identify with a purpose, with a mission, we're immediately getting on our magic carpet.
Yeah. And that's something that's really helpful for me.
Yeah, good. So how about a couple of tips, takeaways for our listeners on this too? As I said, my belief is it's the choice.
Yeah.
It's the immediate choice to, if we look at the first point where we talked about all the personal growth and where, if you're judging yourself and thinking it's not working or good enough, man, choose acceptance and just glance back a moment and remind yourself where you were.
Yeah.
If you're the human that's waking up and seeing everything that isn't working or wrong, stop and choose. Wait a minute. What is working? What have I done that's amazing? It immediately changes the energy.
Yeah.
And, for the third point, if one is missing an identification with something that creates the sense of freedom, that gives you your wings or gives you your magic carpet, investigate. What is important to you? What is it about being on this planet that lights you up? Where's your cause? Where's your heart? And do some investigation in that area.
Yeah, those are all really good. For me, the attitude adjustment is how you relate to yourself and extracting, right? So this was an exercise that was shared with me a long time ago, and it was really like, okay, well, if you were to look at yourself as a child, like a 5-year-old that you needed to parent.
Yeah.
So you've got your parent aspect, and then you've got like your 5-year-old aspect. Okay, cool. What sort of relationship are you going to build there? Like, how are you going to treat that child?
Yeah.
And so the incarnate personality is kind of that child, it's trying to figure itself out. It's trying to like figure out its place in the world. It's trying to, do all these different things and really make sense of it all. And your parent is like there, and you can really see it objectively of like, okay,
right.
I get it. Like, I know where you're headed.
Right.
And I see what you're doing. And so let's just give a little gentle nudge in this way.
Right.
Right. And you think about like that, to me, is a really profound shift.
Right.
Because when you think about abusive parents, like, I don't want to take it all dark, but just for a second,
Please don't.
Like where a parent can be really, negative
right.
or oppressive,
emotionally, physically abusive,
whatever that might be. When you think about the damage that does to the child, well, when you talk to yourself that way,
right?
When you really get into that and get down on yourself and the shame, like that's exactly what you're doing to yourself.
Yes.
And so for me, this has been a really long journey. And it is a never ending journey, no matter how long you've been on it. Like one of the reasons that for me anyway, that was those ups and downs was because I really just didn't have the best tools. When I discovered energy mastery, and how that works. Like that was a really, really big moment because it just gave all the tools for everything that you need when you take the life assessment, right? The ultimate life tool, and gain that perspective of yourself. Part of it's really affirming to see like, wow, this is what I am,
right?
Not who I am. This is just what I am.
Right.
And then this is how I function.
Right.
That objective perspective is affirming on one level, but also has an understanding of like, oh, cool. Well, it's this kind of like, I'm not going to drive this Jeep like I'm going to drive a Ferrari.
Right. Exactly.
I need to really respect and honor that, so that attitude adjustment really makes it just profoundly, it really changes the conversation to me. And that to me is a huge adjustment. And then using the tools that we have available to really make that so much easier and faster.
Exactly.
Like people can do the work that I did in, 15 years in like 6 months.
Yeah. I love it.
Truly.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. So it's, everyone, it really comes back to a desire, to a choice, to a willingness of just seeing things differently and seeing yourself differently. And I like that comparison of the child and the parent. If you want to go deeper in this area, we have there's two things. You heard us talk about energy mastery. In the show notes, there'll be an application. This is really the highest level energy work out there. Apply. I've got a training in New York City at the end of March. Nick has some happening regularly in San Clemente at the Energy Mastery Center. As well, there's something called the Ultimate Life Tool, which is really a fascinating tool. And this will give you a perspective of the doorway to your heart. There are people that are emotionally centered, intellectually centered, movement centered, instinctually centered. And when you know how someone opens the doorway to your heart and how you open the doorway to your heart, it really shifts things. There's a great amount of acceptance and understanding of who you are. So there's a link for more information in our show notes to take that as well. And any last tips? Well,
yeah, just to put those in context, it's like the assessment tool really gives you such a great view of who you are and what your potential is. So it's not one of those that's like really subjective and it's like, well, it could be this or it could be that. It's very objective. And then the energy tools are to help you take that and then to just really expedite that process of embodying your full potential, embodying the real potential that's being revealed there.
Right.
So just the two work hand in hand in a really beautiful way.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's it for me. Yeah. What a cool conversation. It's one of my favorite topics. So
I know.
Thanks for
So people, go out there and love yourself. All right. You love yourself. You love others. You shine a little bit brighter. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but man, it is so freaking true.
game changer.
Yeah.
Thanks,
for sure.
Kisma.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. And talk to you next week. Much love.
Namaste.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.